The lesson was unmistakable. In American politics, the truth always wins when it's properly documented, strategically revealed, and backed by the full authority of the intelligence community. Hillary Clinton had learned this lesson too late, and it had cost her everything. The international implications of the confrontation began to emerge within weeks of the broadcast. Foreign intelligence services around the world had watched in fascination as American intelligence agencies systematically exposed one of their own political leaders as a foreign asset. The revelation sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles as allies and adversaries alike reassessed their understanding of American political integrity. The British intelligence services, longtime partners of American agencies, issued a classified assessment that was later leaked to The Guardian. The assessment noted that the Gabbard-Clinton confrontation represented the most significant counterintelligence operation conducted in public view in modern history. British analysts were particularly impressed by the methodical way that Tulsi had presented evidence, noting that it demonstrated a level of operational security and strategic thinking that exceeded most classified briefings. Russian intelligence services, meanwhile, found themselves in the unprecedented position of having one of their most successful operations exposed in real time on American television. Intercepted communications revealed panic within Russian intelligence ranks as they realized that their 8-year operation to influence American energy policy through Clinton had been completely documented by American counterintelligence. The revelation forced Russian intelligence to conduct a comprehensive review of all their American operations, as they realized that the American intelligence community had been more aware of their activities than they had understood. Multiple Russian intelligence officers were reportedly reassigned or recalled as the Kremlin conducted its own investigation into how their Clinton operation had been so thoroughly penetrated and documented. Chinese intelligence services conducted their own analysis of the confrontation, with particular focus on Tulsi's use of declassified intelligence as a political weapon. Chinese analysts reportedly concluded that the confrontation demonstrated a new level of sophistication in American information warfare capabilities that required immediate countermeasures. The European Union launched its own investigation into Clinton's activities during her tenure as Secretary of State, particularly focusing on energy policy decisions that had affected European interests. EU investigators discovered that several policy decisions that had harmed European energy security had directly benefited Russian interests, leading to a formal diplomatic protest about American politicians compromised by foreign governments. Within the United States, the confrontation triggered the most comprehensive review of foreign influence operations in American history. The Senate Intelligence Committee, led by Chairman Marco Rubio, announced a bipartisan investigation into all aspects of foreign influence in American politics, with particular focus on financial relationships between American politicians and foreign entities. Representative Jim Jordan, ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, called for a special prosecutor to investigate what he termed the greatest political corruption scandal in American history. Jordan argued that if the intelligence community had evidence of Clinton's Russian connections as early as 2012, the failure to act on that intelligence represented a fundamental breakdown in American governance. The Department of Justice found itself in an unprecedented position. Attorney General Merrick Garland faced intense pressure to launch criminal investigations into Clinton's activities, but he also had to consider the implications of prosecuting a former Secretary of State and presidential candidate based on intelligence that had been declassified for political purposes. After weeks of deliberation, Garland announced the appointment of a special counsel to investigate all aspects of foreign influence operations involving former government officials. The special counsel, veteran prosecutor Robert Hur, was given broad authority to investigate not just Clinton's activities, but the entire network of American politicians who may have been compromised by foreign governments. The FBI launched its own internal investigation to determine how Clinton had operated as a Russian asset for 8 years without being detected and stopped. The investigation revealed systemic failures in counterintelligence procedures that had allowed a high-level political figure to influence American policy on behalf of foreign interests. Former FBI Director James Comey found himself under intense scrutiny for his handling of Clinton-related investigations during his tenure. Critics noted that Comey had investigated Clinton's email server while apparently ignoring evidence of her Russian financial relationships that the intelligence community had documented as early as 2012. The revelation also cast new light on the 2016 presidential election. If Clinton had indeed been operating as a Russian asset since 2009, her presidential campaign represented an unprecedented attempt by foreign intelligence to install a compromised candidate in the White House. The implications for American democracy were staggering. Political scientists began analyzing what they termed the Clinton paradox, how a politician who was secretly working for Russian interests had simultaneously accused others of being Russian assets. The analysis revealed a sophisticated disinformation strategy that used accusations of foreign influence to deflect attention from actual foreign influence. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a professor of international relations at Georgetown University, published a comprehensive analysis titled "The Perfect Disinformation Campaign: How Russian Intelligence Used American Media to Protect Their Assets." The study detailed how Clinton's Russian asset accusations have been amplified by American media outlets, creating a protective narrative that discredited legitimate criticism of actual Russian operations. The media industry faced a reckoning unlike anything in its history. News organizations that had spent years amplifying Clinton's Russian asset accusations without demanding evidence found themselves exposed as unwitting participants in Russian disinformation campaigns. The revelation forced a fundamental re-examination of journalistic standards and the relationship between media outlets and political sources. CNN faced particular scrutiny given that the revelation had occurred on their own network. Internal emails revealed that CNN executives had been aware of the explosive nature of Tulsi's planned presentation, but had decided to proceed with the interview anyway, believing that the public interest in exposing foreign influence operations outweighed the potential political consequences. Anderson Cooper, who had moderated the historic confrontation, found himself praised for his professional handling of an unprecedented situation. Media critics noted that Cooper had allowed both participants to present their cases fully without interference, enabling the truth to emerge through the systematic presentation of evidence rather than through journalistic interpretation. The New York Times conducted an internal investigation into its coverage of Clinton's Russian asset allegations, ultimately publishing a lengthy editor's note acknowledging that the newspaper had failed to adequately verify claims about foreign influence that were themselves part of foreign disinformation campaigns. The Times committed to implementing new verification procedures for all claims related to national security and foreign influence. The Washington Post went further, publishing a series of articles examining how Russian intelligence had successfully manipulated American media coverage through the strategic provision of compelling but false narratives. The series, titled "How We Got Played," became required reading in journalism schools across the country. MSNBC faced the most severe criticism, given that the network had built much of its programming around Clinton's Russian asset narratives. Several MSNBC hosts were forced to issue public apologies for amplifying what they now understood to be Russian disinformation. The network implemented new guidelines requiring intelligence community verification for all claims related to foreign influence operations. Fox News, meanwhile, found itself in the unusual position of having been more accurate in its coverage than its mainstream competitors. Conservative commentators who had questioned Clinton's Russian asset accusations were vindicated by the intelligence revelations, leading to a significant shift in media credibility among American viewers. The social media platforms faced their own challenges in responding to the revelation. Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube had all amplified Clinton's Russian asset accusations through their recommendation algorithms, effectively serving as distribution channels for Russian disinformation. The platforms were forced to acknowledge that their efforts to combat foreign disinformation had been manipulated by the very disinformation campaigns they claimed to be fighting. Twitter CEO Elon Musk conducted his own investigation into the platform's handling of Clinton-related content, ultimately releasing internal documents showing how Twitter's previous management had actively suppressed criticism of Clinton while amplifying her accusations against others. The revelation provided additional evidence of how Russian intelligence had successfully infiltrated American information systems. The academic community launched multiple research projects to understand how such a sophisticated disinformation campaign had succeeded for so long without detection. Harvard's Kennedy School of Government established a new research center focused on information warfare and democratic resilience, with Tulsi Gabbard serving as a senior fellow. The Center for Strategic and International Studies published a comprehensive report titled The Clinton Case: Lessons in Counterintelligence Failure and Recovery. The report analyzed how the intelligence community had documented Clinton's Russian connections, but had failed to act on that intelligence in a timely manner. Yale Law School created a new course on intelligence law and democratic accountability, using the Gabbard-Clinton confrontation as a case study in how classified information could be used to serve the public interest while maintaining national security. The confrontation also triggered a broader discussion about the role of military veterans in American politics. Tulsi's background in military intelligence had given her both the clearances and the analytical skills necessary to counter sophisticated disinformation campaigns. Political observers noted that her military training had been essential to her ability to systematically document and present evidence in a way that civilian politicians could not have accomplished. Veterans organizations across the country praised Tulsi's handling of the confrontation, noting that she had demonstrated the same tactical intelligence and strategic thinking that made military veterans effective leaders. The American Legion issued a statement saying that Tulsi had honored the military tradition of service above self by using her intelligence training to defend American democracy against foreign manipulation. The Veterans of Foreign Wars organization went further, establishing a new award for distinguished service in defense of democratic institutions, with Tulsi as the first recipient. The award recognized veterans who used their military training and experience to protect American democratic processes from foreign and domestic threats. Military intelligence schools began incorporating the confrontation into their curricula as an example of how intelligence professionals could serve the public interest while maintaining operational security. The systematic way that Tulsi had presented classified evidence became a textbook example of how to conduct public intelligence briefings without compromising sources and methods. The Pentagon conducted its own review of the confrontation, ultimately concluding that Tulsi's actions had strengthened rather than weakened American national security by exposing foreign influence operations that had been operating undetected for years. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin issued a statement praising the professional excellence and patriotic service that Tulsi had demonstrated. The intelligence community's response to the confrontation was overwhelmingly positive. Career intelligence officers noted that Tulsi's presentation had restored public confidence in their work by demonstrating that the agencies were capable of sophisticated analysis of foreign threats. The systematic documentation of Clinton's Russian connections showed that American intelligence capabilities were more comprehensive than the public had understood. CIA Director William Burns issued a rare public statement acknowledging that the agency had learned valuable lessons about the importance of timely action on counterintelligence assessments. The statement was widely interpreted as an admission that the CIA had failed to act quickly enough on its early intelligence about Clinton's Russian connections. NSA Director Paul Nakasone praised Tulsi's exemplary demonstration of how intelligence professionals can serve both classified and public interests without compromising operational security. The NSA statement noted that Tulsi's careful declassification procedures had actually enhanced rather than diminished the agency's capabilities. The Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, announced a comprehensive review of procedures for handling counterintelligence assessments involving American political figures. The review was designed to ensure that future foreign influence operations would be detected and addressed more quickly than the Clinton case had been. The confrontation also had significant implications for the 2024 presidential election. Republican candidates immediately incorporated the Clinton revelations into their campaign messaging, arguing that the entire Democratic establishment had been compromised by foreign influence operations. Donald Trump, in particular, claimed vindication for his long-standing accusations about Clinton's foreign entanglements. Democratic candidates found themselves in the difficult position of distancing themselves from Clinton while avoiding criticism of the intelligence community that had exposed her activities. Many Democratic politicians issued carefully worded statements supporting transparency in foreign influence investigations while avoiding direct criticism of Clinton. President Biden faced particular pressure to address the Clinton revelations, given his long association with her during the Obama administration. Biden ultimately issued a statement saying that he had been unaware of any intelligence assessments regarding foreign influence operations involving former administration officials, and that he supported full investigation of all such matters. The revelation also affected down-ballot races across the country. Democratic candidates who had previously embraced Clinton's endorsements found themselves having to explain their associations with someone whom the intelligence community had identified as a foreign asset. Republican candidates, meanwhile, used the Clinton case to argue that the entire Democratic Party had been compromised by foreign influence. Polling data showed significant shifts in public opinion following the confrontation. A CNN poll conducted 2 weeks after the broadcast found that 67% of Americans believed that Hillary Clinton had been influenced by foreign governments during her time in office. More significantly, 78% of respondents said they had less confidence in Democratic Party leadership following the revelations. The poll also showed a dramatic increase in public confidence in military veterans serving in political positions. 84% of respondents said they would be more likely to support veteran candidates based on Tulsi's demonstration of how military training could be applied to political challenges. International polling showed similar trends, with American allies expressing increased confidence in American intelligence capabilities while questioning the integrity of American political institutions. A Pew Research survey of European leaders found that 73% had increased confidence in American intelligence agencies following the systematic exposure of the Clinton operation. The economic implications of the revelations were equally significant. Energy markets reacted strongly to the confirmation that American energy policy had been influenced by Russian interests for 8 years. Oil and gas prices fluctuated wildly as investors tried to assess which policy decisions had been made to benefit Russian rather than American interests. The uranium mining rights that had been sold to Russian interests during Clinton's tenure became the subject of intense scrutiny. Congressional investigators discovered that the sale had given Russian entities control over approximately 20% of American uranium production capacity, creating a strategic vulnerability that national security experts described as unprecedented in modern American history. Environmental groups found themselves in the awkward position of having supported many of the energy policies that were now revealed to have been influenced by Russian interests. Several major environmental organizations issued statements acknowledging that they had been unwittingly manipulated by foreign influence operations designed to weaken American energy independence. The renewable energy sector faced particular challenges as investigators examined which green energy policies had been genuinely motivated by environmental concerns versus those that had been influenced by Russian efforts to weaken American fossil fuel production. The investigation revealed a complex web of foreign influence that had affected multiple aspects of American energy policy. Wall Street conducted its own analysis of the Clinton revelations, with major investment firms publishing reports on the potential economic impact of policy decisions that had been influenced by foreign interests. Goldman Sachs estimated that Russian influence on American energy policy had cost the American economy approximately $200 billion in lost opportunities and strategic vulnerabilities. The revelation also triggered a comprehensive review of the Clinton Foundation's activities during Hillary's tenure as Secretary of State. Investigators discovered that the foundation had received donations from Russian-linked entities totaling over $145 million during the period when Clinton was making policy decisions that benefited Russian interests. The Clinton Foundation was forced to undergo a complete financial audit, ultimately returning millions of dollars in donations that investigators determined had been part of foreign influence operations. The Foundation's board of directors issued a statement acknowledging that they had failed to adequately screen donors for potential foreign influence connections. Chelsea Clinton, who had served on the Foundation's board during the period in question, faced intense scrutiny for her role in accepting foreign donations while her mother was serving as Secretary of State. Chelsea ultimately resigned from the Foundation's board and issued a public statement supporting complete transparency in all matters related to foreign influence. Bill Clinton found his own post-presidential activities under investigation, particularly his speaking fees from Russian-linked organizations during Hillary's tenure as Secretary of State. Investigators discovered that Bill had received over $500,000 in speaking fees from entities connected to the uranium deal that Hillary had approved as Secretary of State. The investigation into the Clinton family's finances revealed a pattern of foreign payments that correlated directly with favorable policy decisions from Hillary's State Department. The timing and amounts of these payments provided clear evidence of what investigators termed a systematic influence operation that compromised American foreign policy for nearly a decade. As the full scope of the Russian influence operation became clear, political observers struggled to find historical precedents for such a comprehensive penetration of American government. The closest comparison was the Aldrich Ames case, but that involved a single CIA officer selling secrets rather than a Secretary of State systematically influencing policy on behalf of foreign interests. The revelation fundamentally changed how Americans viewed the relationship between money and politics. The Clinton case demonstrated that foreign governments could successfully purchase influence over American policy through a combination of donations, speaking fees, and business relationships that appeared legitimate on the surface, but constituted sophisticated influence operations when analyzed comprehensively. Legal experts debated whether Clinton's activities constituted treason, espionage, or simply corruption. The unusual nature of the case, a high-level political figure influencing policy through legal financial relationships rather than traditional espionage, created unprecedented challenges for prosecutors and legal scholars. Former Attorney General William Barr published an analysis arguing that Clinton's activities represented a new form of treason adapted to the modern era of globalized finance. Barr noted that traditional espionage laws were inadequate to address cases where foreign influence was exercised through legal financial mechanisms rather than classic intelligence operations. Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz took a different view, arguing that while Clinton's activities were morally reprehensible and politically disastrous, they might not constitute criminal behavior under existing statutes. Dershowitz noted that the case highlighted the need for new laws specifically addressing foreign influence through financial relationships. The Supreme Court found itself preparing for potential cases related to the Clinton revelations, particularly regarding the balance between national security and political transparency. Legal scholars anticipated that the court might need to establish new precedents for how classified intelligence could be used in criminal prosecutions of high-level political figures. As the first anniversary of the confrontation approached, political historians began analyzing its long-term significance for American democracy. The systematic exposure of foreign influence operations through declassified intelligence had created a new model for political accountability that other democracies were beginning to adopt. The confrontation had also demonstrated the continuing importance of military service in American political leadership. Tulsi's ability to counter sophisticated disinformation campaigns had relied on intelligence training that civilian politicians simply did not possess, highlighting the value of veterans in political positions. Perhaps most importantly, the confrontation had shown that the truth, when properly documented and strategically revealed, remained the most powerful force in American politics. Tulsi's methodical destruction of Clinton's narrative had proven that no amount of political spin could overcome comprehensive intelligence analysis backed by the full authority of the American intelligence community. The lesson for future political leaders was clear. In an age of information warfare, authenticity and factual accuracy would ultimately triumph over rhetoric and manipulation. The Clinton case had shown the devastating consequences of building a political career on false narratives, while Tulsi's response had demonstrated the power of truth-telling backed by professional competence and moral courage. As America moved forward from the revelations, one conclusion was inescapable. The confrontation between Tulsi Gabbard and Hillary Clinton had fundamentally changed American politics, establishing new standards for transparency, accountability, and the role of intelligence in democratic governance. The truth had not just prevailed. It had transformed the very nature of American political discourse for generations to come. Hashtag Tulsi Gabbard destroys Hillary Clinton with classified intel. For 3 years, Hillary Clinton had used the Russian asset narrative to destroy anyone who dared to challenge the Democratic establishment. Her latest target was Tulsi Gabbard, and Clinton was confident that this accusation would end Tulsi's political career just like it had ended so many others. But what happened next shocked everyone watching. Instead of defending herself, Tulsi smiled calmly and said, "Secretary Clinton, since you want to talk about Russian assets, let me share some classified intelligence about who was really working for foreign governments during your time in office." The CNN studio was packed with anticipation on this cold February evening. What had been billed as a routine political discussion on Anderson Cooper 360 was about to become the most explosive television moment in recent political history. Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State and presidential candidate, sat confidently in her tailored navy pantsuit, her signature blonde bob perfectly styled for the cameras. Across from her sat Tulsi Gabbard, the former congresswoman from Hawaii and 2020 presidential candidate, dressed in a crisp white blazer that seemed to glow under the studio lights. The tension between these two women had been building for years, but tonight it would reach a breaking point that would send shockwaves through the American political system. What the audience didn't know was that Tulsi had come prepared for war, and the briefcase beside her chair contained classified intelligence documents that would fundamentally change how Americans viewed their political establishment. Before we dive into this incredible confrontation, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss these explosive political moments that are reshaping America. This isn't just another political debate. This is the moment when the intelligence community finally decided to fight back against political corruption at the highest levels. The setup for this confrontation had been 3 years in the making. It began in October 2019 when Hillary Clinton appeared on the David Plouffe podcast and made a statement that would haunt her for years to come. Without naming Tulsi Gabbard directly, Clinton suggested that the Hawaii congresswoman was being groomed by the Russians to run as a third-party candidate to help Donald Trump win the 2020 election. I'm not making any predictions, but I think they've got their eye on somebody who is currently in the Democratic primary and are grooming her to be the third-party candidate, Clinton had said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had served as Secretary of State. She's the favorite of the Russians. They have a bunch of sites and bots and other ways of supporting her so far. The political world immediately understood that Clinton was referring to Tulsi Gabbard. The accusation was devastating and calculated. By suggesting Russian influence without providing evidence, Clinton had deployed one of the most powerful weapons in modern American politics, the specter of foreign interference. For most politicians, such an accusation from someone of Clinton's stature would have been career-ending. The mainstream media would repeat the allegation endlessly, donors would flee, and political allies would distance themselves to avoid guilt by association. Clinton had used this exact strategy successfully against other critics, watching his careers crumbled under the weight of unsubstantiated but politically toxic accusations. But Tulsi Gabbard was not most politicians. As a major in the Hawaii Army National Guard with multiple deployments to the Middle East, she held security clearances that gave her access to intelligence that most members of Congress never saw. More importantly, she had spent her military career in intelligence operations, giving her both the training and the temperament to fight back against political warfare with actual warfare tactics. What Clinton didn't know was that Tulsi had spent the 3 years since the Russian asset accusation quietly building a case against the very people who had tried to destroy her. Using her military intelligence background and her continued security clearances, she had been documenting foreign influence operations that reached far deeper into the American political system than anyone had imagined. The stage was set for tonight's confrontation when CNN booked both women for what they thought would be a standard political discussion about the future of the Democratic Party. Clinton's team saw it as an opportunity for the former Secretary of State to reassert her influence over Democratic politics while subtly reminding voters of her Russian asset allegations against Gabbard. Tulsi's team, however, had different plans. They had been waiting for exactly this moment, a live television appearance where Clinton would inevitably return to her favorite attack line. What Clinton's team didn't know was that Tulsi had received authorization from military intelligence to declassify certain documents for this specific purpose. The intelligence community had grown tired of watching political operatives use national security as a weapon while actual foreign influence operations went unaddressed. Anderson Cooper opened the segment with a question about party unity, giving Clinton the perfect opportunity to position herself as the voice of Democratic wisdom. She launched into a well-rehearsed speech about the need for Democrats to focus on defeating Republicans rather than fighting among themselves. Anderson, the Democratic Party needs to unite around our shared values, Clinton began, her voice carrying the smooth confidence that had made her a political force for decades. We can't afford to be distracted by fringe candidates who seem more interested in dividing our party than in winning elections. The subtle dig at Tulsi was unmistakable, but Clinton wasn't finished. She had come to this interview with a specific goal: to remind the audience of her previous allegations while positioning herself as the defender of American democracy.